Picture this. You wake up on a Monday morning in 2030. You check your phone, expecting to see your work schedule, but instead there's a message from your employer. Your position has been automated. Thank you for your service. You're not alone. That same morning, 47 million other Americans received the same notification. The warehouse worker who's been loading trucks for 15 years, replaced by a robot that never sleeps. The accountant who spent a decade mastering tax law, obsolete, because an AI can process a year's worth of returns in 3 seconds. The graphic designer, the paralegal, the customer service rep, the medical transcriptionist, all gone. This isn't science fiction. This isn't a distant dystopia. This is the trajectory we're on right now, and I'm going to show you exactly why the next 6 years will reshape human labor in ways that most people aren't even beginning to comprehend. I'm Sam Altman, and I've spent my career at the bleeding edge of artificial intelligence development. I've seen what's coming. I've built some of what's coming, and I need to be honest with you about something that keeps me awake at night. The technology we're creating is advancing so rapidly that society has no chance of adapting in time. We're not talking about a gradual transition where workers retrain and find new opportunities. We're talking about an economic earthquake that will shatter the foundations of how humans have structured their lives for the past 2 centuries. The social contract that said, work hard, develop skills, and you'll have economic security is about to become as obsolete as the horse and buggy. Let me start by explaining what makes this moment in history fundamentally different from every other technological disruption we've experienced. When the printing press was invented, it eliminated the jobs of scribes who hand-copied manuscripts. When the automobile took over, blacksmiths and stable workers had to find new trades. When computers arrived, they displaced typists and switchboard operators. Each time, people pointed to history and said, see, technology always creates more jobs than it destroys. We'll adapt like we always have. But here's what they're missing. Those previous disruptions automated tasks. What we're doing now is automating cognition itself. We're not just building machines that can perform repetitive physical labor or execute predetermined algorithms. We're creating artificial intelligence that can learn, reason, create, and make decisions across virtually every domain of human expertise. Think about what that means. Previous automation waves knocked out specific job categories while leaving countless others untouched. The factory robot couldn't write legal briefs. The computer spreadsheet couldn't diagnose patients. The self-checkout kiosk couldn't design marketing campaigns. There were always vast territories of human work that remained safe because they required uniquely human capabilities, judgment, creativity, empathy, complex problem solving. But the AI systems we're developing right now, they're crossing into all of those territories simultaneously. GPT-4 can write legal documents that rival junior associates. AI diagnostic systems are outperforming doctors in identifying certain conditions from medical imaging. Generative AI is creating art, music, and advertising that humans can't distinguish from human-made content. And this is just the beginning. These systems are improving at an exponential rate, not a linear one. Let me explain what exponential improvement actually means, because this is where most people's intuition breaks down. When something improves linearly, you can see it coming. If a technology gets 10% better each year, you can plan for it. You can retrain workers. You can adjust economic policies. You can build social safety nets. But exponential improvement is different. It looks deceptively slow at first, then it hits an inflection point and suddenly explodes. Imagine I give you a choice. You can either receive $1 million right now, or you can receive a penny that doubles every day for 30 days. Most people would take the $1 million. But if you run the math on the doubling penny, by day 30, you'd have over $5 million. That's exponential growth. And here's the terrifying part. We're on day 25 with artificial intelligence. The capabilities of AI systems are doubling roughly every 6 to 10 months right now. In 2020, GPT-3 could write somewhat coherent paragraphs, but would frequently lose the thread of what it was talking about. By 2023, GPT-4 could pass the bar exam, score in the top percentile on standardized tests, and engage in complex multi-step reasoning. By 2025, the models we're testing internally can perform tasks that I frankly can't discuss publicly yet without causing panic. And by 2027, if current trends continue, and there's no reason to think they won't, we'll have systems that match or exceed human performance across the vast majority of economically valuable cognitive tasks. That's not speculation, that's trajectory. Now let me walk you through what's going to happen sector by sector, because the automation tsunami won't hit everywhere at once. It's going to roll through the economy in waves, and understanding the sequence matters if you want to comprehend why this is going to be so devastating. The first wave is already crashing over us. Information work. Anything that involves processing information, analyzing data, generating reports, or creating digital content is in the immediate kill zone. Customer service is already largely automated. If you've contacted a company in the past year, there's a 70% chance you interacted with an AI before ever reaching a human. And there's a 30% chance you never reached a human at all because the AI resolved your issue. Hundreds of thousands of call center jobs have evaporated in the past 3 years alone. Data entry and processing, completely extinct by 2026. No human will ever again be employed to manually input information into databases or extract data from forms. AI can do it faster, more accurately, and for essentially zero marginal cost. Basic accounting and bookkeeping, the same timeline. Small businesses that currently employ bookkeepers will subscribe to AI services that automatically categorize transactions, reconcile accounts, prepare tax documents, and flag anomalies. The entire profession of basic bookkeeping, representing about 2 million jobs in the United States alone, will cease to exist as a human occupation. Content creation is being gutted right now as we speak. Copywriters, journalists covering routine news, social media managers, basic graphic designers. All of these roles are being automated at a pace that's hard to comprehend unless you're watching it happen in real time. Major news organizations are already using AI to write financial reports and sports recaps. Marketing agencies are laying off junior copywriters because AI can generate 100 variations of ad copy in the time it would take a human to write 3. Stock photo businesses are collapsing because AI image generation can create custom images for any purpose in seconds. We're watching an entire ecosystem of creative labor being replaced by systems that cost pennies to operate. But here's where it gets really dark. That's just wave 1. Wave 2 hits the knowledge workers who thought they were safe. Lawyers are about to experience a cataclysm. Legal research, document review, contract analysis, due diligence. These tasks comprise the majority of what junior lawyers and paralegals actually do, and AI already performs them better and faster than humans. A human lawyer might bill 30 hours to review documents for a case. An AI system can do comprehensive document review in 3 hours and catch details the human would miss. The leverage ratio is 10-1 right now, and it's increasing. Law firms are already cutting recruitment of junior associates because they don't need them anymore. The pyramid structure of law firms, many junior lawyers supporting fewer senior partners, is collapsing. By 2028, there will be 70% fewer entry-level legal jobs than there were in 2022. Medicine is facing the same reckoning. Radiologists are already seeing their roles diminished because AI can analyze X-rays, CT scans, and MRIs with superhuman accuracy. Pathologists are next, then diagnosticians. The dirty secret of medicine is that diagnosis is pattern recognition, and AI is phenomenally good at pattern recognition. You describe your symptoms. The AI cross-references them against millions of case studies instantaneously, considers your medical history, factors in the latest research, and generates a differential diagnosis that's more comprehensive than what 90% of human doctors would produce. The human doctor becomes a supervisor, checking the AI's work and handling the emotional component of patient care. But here's the problem. You don't need nearly as many supervisors as you need workers. For every 10 diagnostic physicians you had before, you might need 2 supervisors. That's an 80% reduction. Software engineering, the field everyone said would be safe forever, is already starting to crack. AI coding assistants aren't just helping programmers write code faster. They're writing entire functional programs from natural language descriptions. GitHub Copilot and similar tools are eliminating the need for junior developers who used to spend years learning to translate requirements into code. The senior engineer can now describe what they want, and AI generates the implementation. Code review becomes the main human task, not code writing. And here's the thing that should terrify every software engineer. AI is getting better at code review too. The systems we're testing can identify bugs, security vulnerabilities, and inefficiencies that human reviewers miss. The timeline for software engineering, going from a field with millions of jobs to one with a few 100,000 specialized positions? 4 years, maybe 5. Wave 3 hits the physical world, and this is where people really don't see it coming because they think physical work is safe. They think robots are expensive, clumsy, hard to deploy. They're wrong. The cost of robotics has been falling by 30% per year while capabilities increase. Boston Dynamics-style robots that cost $500,000 in 2020 will cost $30,000 by 2028. That's less than a year's salary for a minimum wage worker, except the robot works 24 hours a day, never calls in sick, never needs benefits, never complains, never sues for workplace injuries. The economics become irresistible. Warehouses are already nearly fully automated. Amazon's facilities are replacing humans with robots at an astonishing pace. They still have humans for certain complex tasks, but watch what happens in the next 3 years. Assembly line manufacturing, already largely automated, but the remaining human workers are being eliminated right now. Food service is automating, not just ordering kiosks, but actual cooking and food preparation. There are already restaurants operating with 0 human workers. You order on a tablet, robots prepare your food, automated systems deliver it to your table. It works. It's cheaper. It's faster. It's more consistent. And it's about to scale everywhere. Transportation is about to experience the single largest job elimination event in modern history. There are approximately 3.5 million truck drivers in the United States. Self-driving trucks are already operating in limited areas. By 2027, they'll be operating nationwide. The technology is ready. The regulatory framework is being built. The economics are overwhelming. A self-driving truck can operate continuously with only refueling stops, doesn't require wages or benefits, never has accidents due to fatigue or distraction, and optimizes routes and fuel consumption beyond human capability. Every trucking company that doesn't automate will be bankrupted by competitors who do. 3.5 million jobs gone in roughly a 3-year period. That's not counting delivery drivers, taxi drivers, and rideshare drivers, which adds another several million jobs to the execution block. Retail is already dying, but the final blow is coming. The remaining retail workers, cashiers, stock clerks, sales associates are being eliminated by a combination of automated checkout, inventory robots, and AI-powered virtual shopping assistants. China already has fully automated stores that track what you take and charge you when you leave. No checkout process at all. That technology is being deployed in the US right now. The retail sector employs roughly 16 million Americans. By 2030, that number will be under 5 million, and most of those will be in high-end boutique situations where human interaction is part of the luxury experience. Now, here's what I need you to understand about the timeline, because this is what makes it a crash rather than a transition. All of these waves aren't hitting decades apart. They're hitting within a 6-year window. We're going from an economy where human labor is the default way to get things done to an economy where human labor is a specialty exception, and we're making that transition faster than we've ever transitioned anything before. The agricultural revolution took thousands of years. The Industrial Revolution took over a century. The computer revolution took 50 years. The automation revolution is taking less than a decade. The math is straightforward but horrifying. Right now, approximately 147 million Americans are employed. Within the next 6 years, based on conservative estimates of which jobs are automatable with current and near-term technology, somewhere between 60 and 90 million of those jobs will be eliminated, not transformed. Eliminated. The workers won't retrain into new roles because there aren't new roles at scale. That's the fundamental difference this time. When agriculture automated, workers moved to factories. When factories automated, workers moved to service jobs. Where do workers move when AI and robots can do knowledge work and service work and manufacturing and transportation? There is no frontier of jobs humans can do, but machines can't, opening up to absorb the displaced workers. People will say, but what about AI trainers? What about robot maintenance workers? What about new jobs we can't even imagine yet? Let me address this directly because it's the most dangerous myth circulating right now. Yes, there will be jobs training AI systems that might employ 50,000 people globally. Yes, there will be jobs maintaining robots that might employ a few 100,000 people. These numbers are rounding errors compared to the scale of job elimination we're discussing. As for jobs we can't imagine yet, that's magical thinking. It's possible that entirely new categories of work will emerge, but there's no guarantee, and more importantly, there's no time. Even if new job categories do emerge, they won't emerge fast enough or at sufficient scale to catch the tens of millions of workers falling off the employment cliff. Let me paint a picture of what 2030 actually looks like if we continue on the current trajectory. Unemployment isn't measured at 5 or 10% anymore. Depending on how you count it, it's somewhere between 30 and 45%. The distinction between unemployed and not in labor force has become meaningless because there simply isn't demand for human labor at anywhere near previous scales. The people who still have jobs fall into a few categories. Top-tier creative professionals whose work is valued specifically because a human made it. High-level strategic thinkers and decision-makers. Human interface specialists, where people specifically want to interact with humans, owners, and controllers of capital and AI systems. And people in legacy-protected jobs where unions or regulations have temporarily prevented automation. Everyone else, the vast majority of people, are economically superfluous. That's the word I hesitate to use but need to, because we need to be honest about what's happening. In economic terms, their labor has no value because AI and robots can do whatever they could do, but better and cheaper. Now, are these people worthless as humans? Of course not. Do they deserve dignity, security, and good lives? Absolutely. But the economic system we've built for the past 250 years is predicated on people exchanging their labor for income, and when their labor has no economic value, the system has no mechanism to support them. This is where the conversation usually turns to universal basic income, and we need to talk about why that's both necessary and insufficient. UBI is the idea that every citizen receives a regular payment from the government sufficient to cover basic needs regardless of employment status. In a world where human labor is obsolete, some form of UBI becomes inevitable. There's simply no other mechanism to distribute resources to people who can't sell their labor. The question isn't whether we'll implement UBI, we'll have to, or face complete social collapse. The question is whether we'll implement it in time and at sufficient levels to prevent catastrophic suffering in the transition period. Here's the political problem. Implementing UBI at the scale required means fundamentally restructuring the economy. You're talking about permanent income transfers of somewhere between $2 and $4 trillion annually in the United States alone. That money has to come from somewhere, which means unprecedented taxation of corporations, capital gains, and wealth. The people who own the AI systems and robots, the people who are capturing all the productivity gains from automation, would need to fund the existence of everyone else. This is theoretically possible. The productivity of an automated economy is so enormous that you could provide everyone with a comfortable living standard while still leaving plenty of wealth for the capitalist class. But will the political system actually implement this? That's where I have doubts. What I think is more likely is a decade of brutal political fighting, while tens of millions of people fall into poverty, homelessness, and desperation. You'll see UBI proposals endlessly debated, watered down, means-tested into ineffectiveness. You'll see politicians arguing that people need to work for their income, even as there are no jobs for them to do. You'll see the social safety net overwhelmed by demand it was never designed to handle. Food stamp programs, unemployment insurance, disability systems, all of these will collapse under the weight of 40 million newly desperate people trying to access them simultaneously. The social consequences are going to be catastrophic. Crime will explode as people without economic options turn to illegal means of survival. You'll see the rise of mass protests, riots, and potentially organized violence as people rage against a system that has made them obsolete. Political extremism will flourish as desperate people look for scapegoats and simple answers. Authoritarian movements will gain power by promising to protect workers from automation or blame convenient minorities for economic collapse. The social fabric will tear in ways we haven't seen since the Great Depression, except this time, there's no World War II to absorb excess labor and restart the economy. Mental health catastrophes are inevitable. Human identity has been tied to work for centuries. When you meet someone, the first question is usually, what do you do? Work provides not just income, but purpose, structure, social connection, and self-worth. What happens to human psychology when work disappears? We're about to run that experiment at civilization scale. Depression, substance abuse, suicide, all of these will skyrocket. We're already seeing early indicators. The opioid crisis was partly driven by economic displacement in areas where traditional industries collapsed. Multiply that across the entire economy, family structures will collapse. Marriages fall apart under financial stress. Children growing up in households without economic stability face developmental challenges. The research is clear that childhood poverty creates lifelong disadvantages. We're about to subject a generation of children to poverty and instability at unprecedented scale. The long-term consequences for society are almost unthinkable. Geopolitical stability is also at stake. Countries that automate successfully will have enormous economic and military advantages over those that don't. But the countries that automate most successfully will also face the most severe internal social unrest. China is automating faster than the West in many domains. What happens to the Chinese Communist Party's legitimacy when hundreds of millions of Chinese workers find themselves economically obsolete? What happens to democracies when 40% of voters have been made permanently unemployed by the decisions of a tiny technological elite? The potential for international conflict rises as nations struggle with internal instability and compete for control of AI capabilities. Now let me talk about the people who tell you not to worry, because understanding their arguments and why they're wrong is crucial. The optimists come in several flavors. First, there are the historical analogists who say technology has always created more jobs than it destroyed. I've already addressed why this time is different, but let me go deeper. They'll point to ATMs and say everyone predicted ATMs would eliminate bank tellers, but the number of bank tellers actually increased because banks opened more branches. This is true, but irrelevant. ATMs automated one specific task, cash dispensing. Bank tellers shifted to other banking tasks. But AI doesn't automate one task. It automates cognition itself. There's nowhere to shift to. Second, there are the new jobs theorists who insist that we can't predict what new jobs will emerge, but we should trust that they will. This is faith-based economics. Yes, the elevator operator and the switchboard operator were jobs that no longer exist, replaced by jobs like app developer and social media manager that didn't exist before. But app developers and social media managers are themselves now being automated. The new jobs that emerged in previous transitions were jobs that required uniquely human cognitive abilities. We're now automating those cognitive abilities. The next wave of new jobs would need to require capabilities that humans have, but AI doesn't. What are those capabilities? No one can answer this question convincingly. Third, there are the education and retraining advocates who believe that if we just educate workers better, they'll be fine. This is perhaps the most dangerous myth because it sounds so reasonable. The problem is that retraining a 45-year-old truck driver to become a data scientist isn't realistic for most people, but even if it were, data science itself is being automated. You're not retraining people into stable careers. You're retraining them into jobs that will be automated in 3 years. And here's the math problem. Even in the most optimistic scenario where retraining works perfectly, it takes years to retrain someone, and jobs are being automated faster than training programs can adapt. You're running on a treadmill that's accelerating faster than you can run. Fourth, there are the humanist luxury believers who think that humans will always want human-provided services in certain domains. People will want human bartenders, human therapists, human teachers, human artists, they say. This is partly true, but it's a luxury market, not a mass employment market. Yes, there will be premium human-provided services for people who can afford them, but that might employ 1% of the population, not 50%. The vast majority of therapy will be AI-provided because it's effective and affordable. The vast majority of teaching will be AI-provided because it's personalized and scales infinitely. The vast majority of art will be AI-generated because it's cheap and good enough. Human-provided versions become expensive boutique experiences. Fifth, and most insidiously, there are the timeline skeptics who keep moving the goalposts. 5 years ago, they said AI would never be creative. Now AI creates art and music, so they say, well, it's not really creative in the human sense. They said AI would never pass professional exams. Now AI passes the bar and medical licensing exams, so they say, but it doesn't really understand. They said AI would never write code. Now AI writes functional programs, so they say, but it needs human supervision. Every time AI crosses a threshold they claimed was impossible, they retreat to a new, supposedly unbreakable barrier. This is motivated reasoning. They don't want to believe human labor is becoming obsolete, so they invent reasons why it's not, even as the evidence accumulates overwhelmingly. So what do? I'm going to be honest with you. I don't have a solution that saves everyone. I don't think there is one. What I have is a framework for thinking about how to minimize the catastrophe and maybe, if we're lucky and wise, build something better on the other side. First, we need to acknowledge reality. The automation wave is coming. It's not speculative. It's not preventable. Any plan that starts from, we'll stop the AI development, is fantasy. The competitive pressures are too strong. If the United States stops developing AI, China won't. If China stops, Europe won't. If all nations stop, corporations won't. The technology is too powerful and too lucrative to stop. Second, we need to start building the economic infrastructure for a post-labor world right now, not in 5 years when the crisis is undeniable. That means serious proposals for UBI, funded by wealth taxes, carbon taxes, and taxes on AI productivity gains. It means universal healthcare fully decoupled from employment. It means massive investment in housing to prevent homelessness when income disappears. It means reforming bankruptcy laws, student debt, and other financial structures that assume everyone has income. This needs to happen in the next 2 years, not 2029. Third, we need to completely reimagine education. The current education system is designed to produce workers. That model is dying. Education needs to shift toward helping humans find meaning, develop creativity for its own sake, understand the world, build communities, and pursue knowledge independent of economic value. This is a philosophical shift, not just a curricular one. We need to break the connection between education and employment in the public mind. Fourth, we need experiments in alternative social structures. What does community look like when it's not organized around work? What do people do with their time when they're not employed? How do we build purpose and identity separate from economic productivity? We should be funding pilot programs, intentional communities, research into post-work societies. We need to learn what actually works before we're forced to figure it out in crisis conditions. Fifth, we need hard conversations about wealth and power. In an automated economy, whoever owns the AI systems and robots owns everything. The productivity gains flow entirely to capital, not labor. Without deliberate intervention, you get a hyper-concentration of wealth that would make current inequality look trivial. We're talking about a world where a few thousand people own the means of production for the entire economy, and everyone else owns nothing and produces nothing of economic value. That world is a dystopian nightmare. Preventing it requires wealth redistribution on a scale that will face ferocious resistance from those who benefit most from automation. Sixth, we might need to consider more radical approaches, like mandatory profit sharing, where companies above a certain size must distribute a percentage of profits to all citizens. Or sovereign wealth funds that own shares in all major corporations and distribute dividends universally. Or even partial nationalization of AI systems so that the public owns the means of production in the age of AI. These ideas sound extreme, but the alternative is mass suffering. Here's what keeps me up at night. I don't think we're going to do any of this in time. I think we're going to sleepwalk into the crisis, deny it's happening even as it unfolds, fight politically instead of building solutions, and allow tens of millions of people to fall into poverty and desperation before we finally, grudgingly implement inadequate half measures. The human cost of our delay will be incalculable. Families destroyed, lives ruined, potential wasted, suffering on a scale we haven't seen in the developed world since the 1930s. But here's the thing, it doesn't have to be this way. We have the resources, the technology, and the knowledge to manage this transition well. An automated economy could be a utopia. Imagine a world where no one needs to work unless they want to, where everyone has material security, where humans are free to pursue art, science, relationships, exploration, and meaning for their own sake, where the enormous productivity of AI and robotics provides abundance for all. That world is possible. The technology can create that world. The only question is whether our political and economic systems will allow it. So here's where I land. The automation crash is coming. Human workers are going to lose, not because they're inadequate, but because they're competing against machines that are better, faster, cheaper, and improving exponentially. The timeline is roughly 6 years, not 20 or 30. The scale is tens of millions of jobs, not thousands. The social consequences will be severe unless we take dramatic action now. In the ultimate outcome, whether we end up in a dystopian nightmare or a post-scarcity utopia, depends entirely on the choices we make in the next few years about how to distribute the benefits of automation and how to help humans find purpose and meaning in a world where their labor isn't needed. This is the most important challenge facing civilization. It's more important than climate change in the short term, though climate and automation interact in complex ways. It's more important than any individual policy debate. It's more important than the culture war distractions that dominate our politics. Because if we get this wrong, if we allow the automation transition to happen without deliberate planning and compassion, we're looking at social collapse on a scale that could take generations to recover from. But if we get it right, if we build systems that ensure automation benefits everyone rather than impoverishing most people, we could be on the verge of the greatest flourishing in human history. The choice is ours, but the window to make it is closing fast.